Business and Property Podcast. I'm Simon. I've been investing in property for over 20 years, and if you're an active landlord or planning your next property investment, this podcast is for you. If you're willing and able to leave a rating or review in your podcast player of choice, I would very much appreciate it. And today, I'm very pleased to welcome back Julia Scoville, who has been a previous guest on this podcast back in January. So if you want to go back and listen to that episode as well, there will be a link to that in the show notes. But today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, and it's one of Julia's other ventures beyond her sort of primary business, which we were talking about before. And it's a sort of localized property meetup. In this case, it's Crawley Property Meetup, which is a town close to where I am and Julia is as well. And this is actually a meetup that's been going for a long time. And it's got a sort of quite interesting history. Now, we're going to talk a bit about property meetups more generally and things throughout this episode. But I'd really like to just start off with a little bit of history about Crawley Property Meet. So thank you very much for joining me, Julia. And can you kick us off with telling us how Crawley Property Meet got started?
Hello, Simon, and hello, listeners. I'm really happy to be here and share Crawley Property Meet, how it all started. So Crawley Property Meet started actually about 10 years ago. And it started not by myself. It started by two amazing women, Pam and Tanya. And those two ladies started the property journey and they started to invest. And they were looking to connect with other people in the area, other landlords in Crawley, just to talk about the journey, see what's happening, because it can be a lonely game, right? To be a landlord, building a portfolio. And they start seeking out other people in the area. And I think they met other landlords nearby, Phil and Nick. And I can't remember how we came across together. Maybe we were doing the viewing together and we start talking. But nevertheless, somehow we meet up in, actually we used to meet up in a foyer of Aurora Hotel and just had general chat, had a coffee, and it was 6 of us to start with. And personally, I am really keen networker. I always network with people, love people as well, love connecting with different level of backgrounds, expertise people. So I start naturally bringing people to the network, and we start to grow and grow to the point where it became 12 of us, and we were all kind of occupying this foyer of the reception in a hotel. And it came to the point where we're having conversation. We couldn't even hear each other because like there is so many of us, and it's like, can you hear me? And it's just quite noisy. And was the pivot point where it has taken into professional level, and booking a private room somewhere was necessity. So that's how it all started.
Cool. Now, I think you moved on from that foyer to a pub. Was there? I first attended Crawley Property Meet when it was back in a hotel, or in a hotel again, but it was in a room in a hotel, a dedicated room. But I think there was a little phase between those two, between the foyer and moving into a hotel room. Am I right in thinking it went via some rooms in pubs?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is lovely pub, by the way, in Crawley, Golf Manor, I think, pub. And it had more like a private area. So yes, it was in that pub. The pub was quite old and it had like lower beams. So for those who were very tall, they have to kind of bend. But it was amazing venue as well, because it was quite private, quite small, suited for the numbers of the venue at the time. And even during that time, we have outgrew that venue. We start having more and more people. And that's how we transition, or Pam and Tanya at that time transitioned to a hotel, like renting a larger. I think actually in the peak times, during those times, we had 60, and I think the biggest probably was about 100 people in the room.
Yeah, I remember coming to some events that were really quite large and very, very well attended. So, and I remember it being a fantastic sort of atmosphere and a great meeting event generally. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about sort of the structure of Crawley Property Meet, at least how it is now. But first of all, of course, this was, as you say, started 10 years or so ago. And that, of course, means that these events were happening pre-COVID. And, of course, everything changed in COVID. And, well, rather than me say what happened as a visitor, I think perhaps you can you can give us your view on what happened to Crawley Property Meet over the COVID years.
Yeah, of course. So as obviously we still remember those days, we had to transition Crawley Property Meet to online, like any other venue, any other networking event. So we were meeting online, I think almost for 2 years. And it's kind of, I guess, obviously worked because that was the only way interact with each other at that time. And we did have lots of problems, right? We faced lots of difficulties in terms of our businesses being landlords, and all of a sudden your tenants are moving out or not able to pay your rent, and if you are building renovating you have to pause. So there was lots of challenges around that. So having that network and having people around you who maybe been creative or came up with ideas was invaluable, to have access, but also have support, of like-minded people, or knowing that someone is facing exactly the same challenge as you. So yes, it was online during COVID for 2 years, which I think personally is actually great success that the network itself has been running for so long, went through COVID and still running and still, getting success, getting traction. Because I think from my experience talking to other hosts of other venues, other networking events, quite few of them had to just stop literally, and I was part of number of different networking groups in London, and now I'm seeking them out and I can't find them anymore. Like it's all online meets now. So it's finding face-to-face meetings again, I think personally is harder than what it was before.
Yeah, I mean, pre-COVID, this is sort of outside property, but I ran a local co-working event every month as well, and yeah, I didn't find a way to keep that running through COVID, and since COVID, I haven't had the opportunity to or perhaps just the energy to resurrect that. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of meetup events did sort of go that way, unfortunately, during COVID. For Crawley Property Meet, though, I remember it sort of transitioning to Zoom meetings to being online. And I think one of the problems with Zoom meetings and online meetings generally is that the sort of networking element of these events is just much, much harder. So I mean, we experimented with different things. So quite often there'd be sort of 20 to 30 people on a Zoom meeting, and there'd be a presentation and things, and then some sort of Q&A and things like that. But you couldn't really sort of strike up conversations with individuals or a small group because, of course, you're in a room of 30. And we did try breakout rooms where you'd have a sort of smaller group of 4 or 5 or something. But even then, it can be a bit difficult to get started and to keep that conversation going. And I mean, in actual fact, quite often I would hang around to sort of the end of these events. And I seem to remember when sort of most people left and there were just sort of the hardcore people left of the last 4 or 5. Actually, that was often when the better networking took place because it was actually more manageable to have a conversation at that point. But because I think of those difficulties running the event online, and it was fantastic that it keep going, and the events were good, but there were difficulties. So I think after COVID, there was a bit of a push to get the in-person, real-life events going again for Crawley Property Meet. And I think now, rather than Pam and Tanya sort of running those events, it was actually yourself who picked up those events and tried to get those going. And as someone who attended them at that point, I know you had some difficulties in this sort of first restart of real-life events after COVID, as I think so many in-person events did. So could you share a little bit about how that went and what the issues were around that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pam and Tanya, the original hosts of the event, actually approached me saying, Julia, we basically we're looking to retire. We want to say no to a few things in our lives. And Crawley Property Meet, I think you will be the best next person to take over. You've been an original member. You always brought new members. And I think you're going to do a great job. So would you be interested to take over? And initially, actually, I said no, because at that time I had different priorities in my life as well. And I thought, I can't see that fitting with what I was doing. But then after, I think 1 month, like this is the interesting thing. You just don't know, right, what's going to happen in your life and new opportunities presenting themselves. And at that time, I was looking to establish a new letting agency. And I thought, bingo, this networking event is absolutely must for my new business venture, because that's just like a platform for, for my business and accessing lots of potential clients. So I said, yes, I will take over. And so I have taken over the event. I have taken over of all the contact numbers. And I was thinking, I'm always the type of person who thinking how I can improve things, how I can make things better, how I can add more value to people or businesses. And I started racking my brains because I thought this is an opportunity for me to format and do something different. And I thought, okay, so with any business, you're always problem solving, right? And providing those nice solutions. And I thought, from my experience coming to networking event, what is the biggest problems? And I thought, one of the biggest problems that, especially when you're in a room of 100 people, 60 people, large audience, you think, I really want to talk to that individual there because I need to ask them this burning question, or they've done what I'm interested to do, but you can't remember the name, you just remember the face. And then obviously there are presentations happening, and then during the networking time, before you know it, you're stuck in this conversation with someone or this group of people, and you feel a bit like you can't just leave this conversation, it will be a bit rude. And before you know it, that person just gone, and you miss your chance and opportunity, and you just, if only. So I thought, okay, how I can eliminate that, how I can provide better opportunity for people to be more laser focused with networking and who they want to connect and who they want to talk. That was number one. Number two, I thought traditional networking events, specifically in property, lots of them do have this format where you've got one guest speaker, then there is a break, and then there is a second guest speaker, and then networking time, which usually then lots of people have to rush back home because they've got kids, other priorities. So there is not much time provided for actually networking and talking to people and connecting. And I thought, again, that's where the magic happens, when you are actually having those interactions, you're having those conversations. And start of conversation can lead you to something that you actually never even thought it's going to pop out, and you think, oh my god, I didn't realize you've done this and that and that, and then you're just diving into deeper levels. And I think that's what you're relating as well, like the juiciest parts right at the end where there are only a few left, because your conversation progress so much further, so much deeper, and you start getting more information out of that person because you start developing relationship, trust. So I thought, okay, that's other problem I want to eliminate or create. And then also I thought, like sometimes property businesses can be lonely business, and you are facing all the time some sort of challenges or problems which you try to solve yourself, but sometimes you just hit the corner and or like a wall, and you just can't think of anything else. So, but having so many people in a room, you can blast through that problem. You can solve that problem. There must be someone in the room who already faced that problem. So that was my three keys that I thought how I can eliminate that, how I can solve that. So I've changed the format, and I decided to choose only one speaker so we can educate our members and add them value, add inspiration, share examples of someone else's portfolio or what they've done. So, there is some sort of element of education. And then the second part of the event, I wanted to promote this networking opportunity. So I start creating subject matter experts tables. So each table will have subject matter expert appointed, whether it will be finance table, whether it's going to be estate agent, letting agent, whether it's going to be construction company, and so on. So that table attracts that specific conversation, and people around that table will be having, let's say, finance conversation, how to remortgage your property, how to refinance, how to, I don't know, bring your portfolio under better interest rates, or you're getting through commercial refinance. What do you need to know? And that table will have subject matter expert appointed to them, which will be mortgage broker. So he can provide valuable professional input. And then once you finish that conversation, you can hop to another table. So it becomes more laser focused rather than you being stuck in one circle of conversation and feel like, but I really need to go and find that person and grab them. It's becoming much more laser focused networking, more productive. And for me personally, as a key networker myself, and a host of Crawley Property Meet, the more of those connection and magic points I can create, my job is better done. This is what makes me happy, like when I see that magic happen. So that's what I decided I'm going to do. I'm going to take it offline, and I'm going to have I'll have amazing guest speakers as well. And I've been doing that. I've been actually securing quite big guys as my guest speakers. And if you're into property, you probably will know Mark Stokes, successful entrepreneur, author of 3 SaaS books, also running his own property academy. I had Stuart Scott, again, another successful property entrepreneur who actually award-winning entrepreneur as well, wrote a book called Core Living, and he's specializing in HMO, core living kind of strategies. So yes, I had amazing guest speakers, but unfortunately I wasn't getting the numbers. So my first event, I think I had about 10 people, then it went down to 7, and that event happened to be on a day of some football tournament. And I was thinking, shall I cancel it? But then I booked the venue, I booked the guest speaker, and I thought, no, we still have to go, have to go with this. So I ran this event for probably 6 months, and unfortunately the numbers weren't coming. As much as I was promoting it, as much as I was, trying my best, the cost of the venue as well just overridden the numbers that I'm getting. So financially also didn't make sense for me, because I had to pay out of my pocket to cover the cost of the venue. So I paused, and we went, I call it dormant. We've got very active WhatsApp group. We've got over 250 members on WhatsApp. And so we kind of went dormant and being just WhatsApp based type community. And it's very interesting because that community been very active on WhatsApp, lots of people asking each other questions, providing support, contacts. And then I thought, you know what, I might just have to give up. And, I thought, okay, I'll just have to wait. And I was thinking, what went wrong during that time? Why, the recipe is there. I had great venue. I had great speakers. I had great layout, and I thought how I can problem solve, how I can add more value. Why are people not turning up? And the only reason I thought it was way too soon after COVID, because people still in that kind of cautious mode, I don't want to come into a room full of people. We're still kind of getting over all the information that had been fed to us about the stats of COVID and death tolls and everything else. So, and I think that had a knock effect. And also talking to other hosts of networking groups, and one of them being Stuart Scott, he's host of Brighton Pin. Now he has taken over from Peter Fannin. I had a chat with him, and he said, actually, we are struggling as well. We are kind of low in numbers, which actually I was surprised, because usually traditionally the corporate networking events, specifically PIN, who've been running for quite some time now and pulling quite big audiences, usually they will get like 100 people in the room, each time. We're getting about 20 people, 30 people. So it's kind of gave me a bit of more confidence. It's not something that I'm doing wrong. It's just period of time that's not correct.
Yeah.
And and then one day, keep noticing our WhatsApp groups, and few people start asking, so when is our next event? When we're meeting up? I would love to see you all. And I'm adding new members to the group, and I'm thinking, oh, like I've just added so and so into this group, and it would be wonderful that this person will connect it with that person, because I can see them collaborating and learning from each other or creating joint ventures. And then I keep adding those new people. I keep thinking, will be wonderful that everyone get to know them, because what they've got to offer is amazing. We all can benefit from this. And that's my second spark came about, to thinking, right, okay, I think this is the time. I need to have a second go at this. And so our first event, again after being dormant, went live in April 2024. It was success. We had 30 people in our first one. We had great speaker, and we just ran our second event in May, and we're planning our third and fourth. And we've got amazing guest speakers lined up for the rest of the year. So fingers crossed, this is it.
Yeah. I mean, I attended most of those events, the first set that you relaunched after COVID, and yeah, the events were good, in so much as the structure was good, and as you say, you had some fantastic guests that were talking about really interesting things. And one of the actual sort of benefits of it being so small in terms of audience was the audience all actually got to then have a proper conversation with the speaker after the presentation. So I mean, there was some benefits to it, but as you say, you lost the wider networking because there weren't as many people in the room, which was obviously a shame. And as you say, it's no good if you're running events that are costing you money and not sort of widening that network for you. It's as someone running events, you really want to be at least cost neutral, rather than the other way around. So I can understand, without the people coming up and joining you in the room, and they just weren't practical to sustain. Now, unfortunately, I missed the first of the relaunch events in April, but I did come along to the one in May, and again, it was absolutely fantastic. There was a lot of people in the room. I had some fantastic conversations after the presentation, and of course, the presentation itself was very good. Now, the structure, I think, is again slightly different. So, is that, what was that, a conscious decision to change the structure again, or?
So the structure will remain the same. It just, at the moment, I'm looking to appoint subject matter experts. And again, I want to have good people, like I don't want just anyone to be there. It has to be a subject matter expert. And
Yeah.
so I'm in conversation, like I'm kind of transitioning now. I'm in conversation to secure those. But actually, what I have added to, and you rightly pointed out, the structure is slightly different. And I think that's what you're referring to. What I have added this time round, because again, my always thinking how I can enhance this experience for people, how I can make those connections much better. Because, for me, if you think, let's say we've got 30 people in the room, we all got different experiences, different contacts, different ideas, different needs, different challenges. And if we would have presented all this information, let's say to even AI, right? I'm going to use this example, and ask, do problem solving here, right? Using this information, I can guarantee we will together will be just elevating each other so much and achieving together so much. But if you're not providing that information up front, and you're staying in yourself and not stating who you are, what you're looking for, how we can help you, then we can't help you. So that's what I've done. I've created and I've encouraged everyone to stand up and share their elevator pitch. And, I'm sure lots of people familiar with elevator pitch, right? It's just like your 60 seconds introduction, who you are, what you do, and how we can help you, what you're looking for. So I've encouraged everyone to do this. And on the first one, I gave option whether you want to do it or not. On this one, I said you have to do it, right? Because I know it's going to benefit people. I know it's going to, like, each time you stand up, you introduce yourself, someone in the audience will be like, oh my God, I definitely need to talk to them. So your conversation will happen most likely. Whether there is positive outcome or not, it's all about exchange of information. And I always say plant the seed, right? Like if you stated the problem you're facing, the challenge, or you explain how you can service this person, what products you can offer, they might not need it right now, but I can guarantee at some point in their lives, they will remember you. They will think, oh, hold on a second, I know who to go to. There was this guy or this lady, and this is what, or if it's not for yourself, maybe your friend or someone that you know through business is looking for that connection, and you will be, I know exactly who you need to talk to. And because you've met that person, you talk to them, you've got immediate trust, it's much easier to make referral. And this is, I guess, the difference between networking and, like sometimes people say, well, why do I need to go to networking? Because I can just Google it. If I need that contact, I can Google. But what Google doesn't give you is that trust, right? You've seen that, whatever, name pop up. And even if you've got 5 stars reviews, you're like, okay, I've got some idea. They've got some good reviews, but you still got this element, but are they good enough? I need to talk to them. Why is that? We're humans, right? We're seeking out connections. We've got that gut feeling that people keep talking about. That gut feeling is for a reason installed in us, because that gut feeling is designed to keep us safe and judge, do we trust this person? Can we feel safe? And that gut feeling will influence you whether to hire that person, to recommend that person, to, do business with them or not. So networking event provides exactly that, whereas Google cannot.
Yep, indeed. I completely agree. However, I do think you have missed a very important extra element that you introduced to the most recent event, or the structure of the most recent event, which of course was the comedy interlude from one of your children, which I must just say was very well presented, and he did really, really, really well with that. It was excellent addition. Yeah, you have to bring it along to the future ones as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I've made a brave move, because our guest speaker said, "Can I bring my daughter to the event?" And I said, "Yes, of course. How old is she?" And he said, 15. And I thought, okay, that's great. I love nurturing young talent. I'm very cautious also how I bring up my children as well. Like I really want them to have business acumen from a young age, understanding finance, business, all those concepts that I wasn't even accustomed during childhood. I didn't even was aware that business was a possibility, or being business owner would be possible. So when he said that, I thought, actually, hold on a second. I've got 11 years old at home, and I always talk about, Mommy's going to Crawley Property Meet. See you later. And they will say, like, good luck, Mommy. Have a good one. And I thought it would be wonderful for actually him to come and see it in real life, what this looks like. And I've asked my husband, I said, do you reckon it's maybe too young? And he said, maybe. And I've asked my son, I said, yeah, I would love to come. And it was really interesting. Bless him. He's 11 years old, right? He's only just finishing primary school last year. And he's like, yes, Mom, I need to dress up. Where's my white shirt? I can wear my white shirt from school uniform. I was like, brilliant. And then he's like, do I need to wear a tie? And Dad goes, I don't think you need a tie. I said, well, Dad, it's a business event. I need to have a tie. So he was really getting really excited about it. And my son, he really wants, like his big dream, he wants to become an actor. So, and he likes to write his own jokes. And he asked me, Mommy, can I share my jokes? And I thought, yeah, why not? It will be stage time for him and practice. And yeah, he did entertainment of the night.
He
Thank you
did
for
indeed.
highlighting.
It was very good, and yeah, please do pass on. He did very, very well. It takes a lot of confidence to be able to stand up in front of a room of people you don't know and tell some jokes, and they work
Absolutely.
very well.
Yeah, and it actually was into my favor as well, because after his stand-up, I've tied it in with a speech saying, well, if 11 years old was able to stand up in front of us and say, whatever he needs to say, you don't have an excuse now to not to stand up and introduce yourself. I think everyone felt obliged.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it did work very well. So we've talked a bit about some of the benefits of sort of local property meets and wider property meetups as well, really. And they are sort of around the opportunity to learn from people who are more experienced and able to come along and present specific information or specific examples and case studies and things like that. There are all sorts of different things that can be presented that are fantastic ways to learn. But you can also create fantastic connections through the networking and sort of learn that way as well. And I think there are lots of business networking events out there. But I know before we started recording, we mentioned that we both sort of realized that there are some benefits to going to specifically property focused networking events as opposed to just more generic business networking events. So for people who are into property, what do you think are those benefits of choosing a property networking event rather than just a generic business networking event?
Yes, well, it straight away eliminates, right? It makes you laser focus on what connections you're looking for, people in the same field, whether they just newbies or very experienced. It's just straight away eliminates your field, and you're connecting with like-minded people straight away. And I think that's again becomes laser focus. I'm always up for mix of networking events, but if you are in property and it's something that you're actively doing, I think it's a great opportunity to connect with property related networking event because straight away you've got huge access to contacts specifically in property.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's always a bit more sort of relaxed at property networking events. I always feel when you go to business networking events, there are lots of, inevitably, people who are in business are often in property as well. But sort of mentioning that you're in property or specifically mentioning that you're a landlord is sort of a bit of a dirty word to bring up in general conversation. And I think that's always puts sort of people on edge, really, at the more generic events where you're not sure if you want to mention that or not. Whereas when you're in a property event, people know. And yeah, it just makes that sort of starting process more relaxed and easier.
Definitely. And I think also like mentioning that you're a landlord with large portfolio, people don't just look at you like, oh my God, like kind of, and it makes you feel a bit like, oh, maybe I shouldn't mention that. Or I'm
Yeah.
doing HMO, so I've got service accommodation, I've got portfolio of 20 houses, 30, 100, I don't know, whatever. I've done construction. People not rolling their eyes, just thinking, like kind of it's then hard, it makes harder to connect, isn't it, when people reacting with some sort of level of objection or judgment to what you do, it's much harder to connect. So being in that natural environment where everyone does it, it's like, yeah, that's what we do, makes it easier.
Yeah, indeed, totally agree. So we are running slightly long for this episode, so unfortunately, as much as I'm enjoying this conversation, we do need to sort of bring it to an end. So I think perhaps in summary, if I say that we both think that local property meets, and of course Crawley Property Meet, especially if you're in the area, are fantastic things to try and attend. They can help build connections, they can help with education and learning, and although they do often have a small cost, they're normally very reasonable for local property meets, and certainly Crawley Property Meet is. And I know we were going to we had wondered about talking about the costs of events a bit, but I think we're probably out of time, unfortunately. So we'll have to save that for another conversation. And I do recommend people check the show notes for links to Crawley Property Meet, but also check their local area for other property meets. And if you can find sort of local independent ones, I think they are often sort of the best to really build that network. But similarly, things like PIN and the sort of more the more corporate sort of property meets that are throughout the country are also fantastic to try and attend and build networks and to learn from as well. So,
mhm.
so go on. I was just going to say, is there anything else that you would just like to finish up with, Julia?
Absolutely. Really briefly on cost. I don't see it as a cost. I see it as an investment, right? Usually, like the fee ranging between, I don't know, 25 to 30 pounds, something around that. And what you usually do, especially when you're just starting out in property, you paid lots of money for big expensive course. They give you the theory. Once you start hitting the practical side of application, that's when lots of problems do come up that they don't teach you in the course and then don't give you all the answers. And
Yeah.
this is the answers that you're going to find in your networking, local networking groups, because there will be people who already face those, and you can ask them how they overcome what's going in an area, and it's going to be very specific to your local area as well, rather than being nationally generic as well. So for me, it's investment and access to solving those practical aspects of your of your property business. So yeah, it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, very good point to add there. Yes, thank you. So just to finish up, if people would like to get in touch with you, Julia, and ask you about Crawley Property Meet or ask you about your other business ventures, how can they do that?
Absolutely. So number one, we've got Facebook group Crawley Property Meet, so you can find us there. If you would like to come along to the event itself and attend and experiences in life, you can find us on Eventbrite. So just Google Crawley Property Meet and you will see our next upcoming events there. Get your ticket and I will see you on the day. And also we do have active WhatsApp group. If you want to be part of that group, get in touch with me. I'll add you in. And also you will be able to see all the contact details, I'm guessing, in the show notes. So I will be more than happy to connect. As I said, I'm a keen networker and I would love to connect with many people as possible because you know that old saying, your network equals your net worth? I do believe truly in that.
Fantastic. And yes, as you say, I will make sure that all those links and contact details and everything else are in the show notes. So yes, everyone listening can definitely look there and find a way to connect to you. So just remains for me to say thank you very much for joining me today, Julia.
Oh, thank you so much, Simon, and for having me. And also thank you to the audience to listening to this episode. And I'll be more than happy to connect with you further.
Fantastic. Thank you. And that is it for today. Please do leave a rating or review in your podcast player of choice. And I will talk to you again next week.